Welcome to the Shyamcast. This is Brett.
This is Shyam.
Thanks for being here with us. Hi, Shyam. How are
It's
you?
it's been a real while. Feels good.
It has been a little while.
Yeah,
How was your trip to India?
trip was wonderful actually. Amazing. Like it was a 15 days trip, very short. 7 days in Vrindavan, 7 days Mayapur. Mayapur is birthplace of Lord Chaitanya. He is an incarnation of Lord Krishna. Um, in the month of Kartik,
Mm,
lot of devotees.
yeah, very nice. So you got like a short but sweet
Yes,
visit.
I like short trips. Um,
Wow. Isn't like with if you're there for about 2 weeks, don't you you're just sort of getting used to the time change and then you flip back and
yeah,
do
my
another one.
body gets my body gets confused. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you?
Yeah,
By
what
the
day
time
is it?
I'm settled again.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Um, well, where we so I guess where we left off last time with the
Hmm,
podcast, Roji, we're in chapter 4,
hmm,
and it appears as if we're going to be ending chapter 4 today. So
wonderful.
we're going to be ending transcendental knowledge. We're going to have all the transcendental knowledge.
Hmm,
Or at least let's say we're going to have all uh the teachings on transcendental knowledge.
yeah,
Still a lot of transcendental knowledge to discover.
yeah.
Um, but I guess that's kind of really just like the topic for the day is transcendental knowledge because the verse just just sort of discusses it, honestly. So little refresher, we discussed the spiritual master last time.
Hmm, hmm,
434
hmm,
was our verse.
hmm,
Um, and so, we talked about spiritual master passes on the knowledge, different types, why you would want to have one. And I guess I'll just read the verse for this time, which
hmm,
is, yeah, it's on this page. 38.
hmm,
38.
hmm,
So I was on the page and I was like, where am I? Flipping
hmm,
around. Okay. So verse 438, Krishna says, in this world, there is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Such knowledge is the mature fruit of all mysticism. And one who has become accomplished in the practice of devotional service enjoys this knowledge within himself in due course of time.
hmm,
So really, I guess the topic is just transcendental knowledge.
hmm, hmm,
Um,
hmm.
can you talk about, well, maybe I guess I won't just jump into like why is it sublime, but how does transcendental knowledge differ from regular knowledge or I guess other types of knowledge?
Hmm. Transcendental knowledge is deeper in nature. It does not deal with physicals. The knowledge in this word mainly deals with physicals, mathematics, how to run in this word, and different things required in this word. Transcendental knowledge deals with the soul, nothing visible. Mm, mm. Our relationship with the divine, our service to the divine, and seeing this material world from a spiritual perspective, like how everybody is acting on the three modes of material nature and how karma is taking place. Like it is way deeper layer transcendental knowledge.
Hmm. Yeah, you discussed a little last time, regarding gurus. You talked about how there was a sort of transmission of knowledge
Hmm.
from guru to disciple.
Hmm.
And um is that sort of what you're talking about here? At least like, that knowledge that is passed is transcendental knowledge.
Hmm. It's spiritual knowledge, yeah. Transcendental is spiritual knowledge. Um, it's realized knowledge.
Mm, mm,
It's one thing that I know things. It's one thing that I see things. And when I see things and when I realize things and I understand things, then I am in transcendental knowledge. Till that time, I have some understanding, but I may not be acting on that. Um,
mm,
And this knowledge Guru can give because Guru understands.
mm,
And Srila Prabhupada says how realized one is can be seen by how easily one can explain one's realization. If
mm,
you really understand a subject matter very well, you can explain in a very simple words and the other person can understand. That's a sign of realization. So when we have a spiritual master who sees, who realizes, and when the knowledge passes on from such a realized soul to a disciple, then it opens our eyes and removes the darkness of ignorance which one is covered by.
mm. So it sounds like, a teacher can say, some words to students that maybe that they're very simple, or, I guess fairly straightforward, or, maybe different people could also say such a thing. But the sounds like the transcendental part, the transcendental knowledge is not really in the words themselves. Like
Mm,
it's not just something you write out on a chalkboard, or you give a
mm.
lecture and it's like, let me just directly tell you what this transcendental knowledge is. It sounds like it's something else. Like it's
Yeah,
a different, I guess maybe as you say, a deeper sort of communication.
it's heart to heart. Words are used, but the communication is heart to heart.
Mm,
Although the words are used externally, it's the realization which Guru gives to the disciple. And the disciple may not be able to hold it. The disciple may get a like a eureka feeling. Oh, now I understand. He may get a feeling of it, but the disciple may not be able to hold it. So the realization of Guru may not become one realization of disciple for good. It can be for a moment. And then Guru gives the process. Guru gives an understanding. The disciple understands, okay, what's the reality is. And then he tells how to make that your own.
mm,
And that is the process of devotional service that Guru gives. And Guru has acquired it by hearing from his Guru and by practicing it over a period of time. And then he passes on that.
mm. Sounds like you get a little taste, or like, you hear it, you get a small taste of it, and
Uh,
then the rest is sort of putting it into practice, maybe.
mm,
I guess
mm,
I think you said something uh about like how, it's one thing to know, it's another thing to sort of like live that, or like
mm,
act that out. That
mm,
seems to be, it's a very big theme in spiritual teaching and spiritual life, is sort of making that difference. It's one thing to just sort of know something, and it's
mm,
another thing to have realized it. And
mm,
realization means that that's sort of like your actions and your words line up
mm,
completely,
mm,
right?
yes,
The
correct.
things that you intellectually understand, you actually live
Mm,
out.
mm. And by reading, one can understand the words, but it's difficult to have a feeling of it, to have a deeper understanding, to see it. And that's where the Guru comes into picture and he directly gives us that realization, that opening up. So that's why it's very sublime.
Mm,
And it's a very fortunate soul gets um, um, a bona fide spiritual master and gets the realization and start working on the process to way out from this material existence.
mm. So, what is meant then when Krishna says that this knowledge is the mature fruit of all mysticism?
Mm,
That's what he calls it.
mm. So different people are trying to do different things in this world. For example, some practice this mystical yoga, like they can fly, they can walk on the water. So they get some realization of um, um, the word of physical is not the ultimate, and there is something beyond it. They try to access. They reject the word of physical and take on, like, the path of mysticism is very austere. There is a lot of enunciation. They take on some severe practices. So there is some realization that is coming. There's something more, something deeper, something more. And the mature fruit of all mysticism is actually to realize who I am. Because people, after getting into mysticism, makes mysticism and the results of mysticism, which is some mystical powers, as the goal, and they start running behind that, and they forget that the purpose of everything that they are doing is to realize oneself. Even if you do some mysticism in this world, it's over in the next. In this life, it's over in the next. So it's still considered material perfection. We manipulate the laws of material nature. So it seems like what nobody else can do, these people are able to do. But still dealing with the physical laws, still at a physical level. So the goal, there's a path of Ashtanga Yoga. We discussed the Eightfold Mysticism, which is in sixth chapter Bhagavad Gita. We'll discuss that. But then the ultimate goal of that is also to realize the Lord within the heart. And to realize that is transcendental knowledge. But before one reaches that stage, lot of mysticism comes. One becomes very powerful by the dint of his austerities. So the maturity is to realize oneself,
Mm,
and that can be attained directly by the medium of a spiritual master.
mm. So there isn't a need for, I guess, directly going down a path of mysticism.
Yes, and Krishna says this: there is indirect path and there is direct path.
Mm,
And the path of bhakti is direct path, and those are like staircase, eventually leading to the top floor, and bhakti is like direct the lift. No need to go through all the steps. Directly go.
mm. You hear a lot about like being tested on a spiritual path, especially as you sort of as you progress or gain knowledge and um, I guess the mysticism we talk about are they called siddhis. Um, they're typically I hear them described as like a big test or a big sort of like, almost like a warning, like don't go after that. It's like a very
Mm,
alluring fruit. It's
mm,
a very alluring thing to want to
mm,
develop, sort of different abilities.
mm,
Um, and it's written about in many different places, right? But it seems to me, at least from what I have encountered, the message is kind of always the same regarding that. It's like
mm,
don't get caught up in that.
mm,
Um, it's sort of, at least from my own perspective, it feels like that would be a very mature stage sometimes, right? Like, wow, if you're so sort of, I guess, connected, or so knowledgeable or so austere that, these things can happen. It seems like that would be mature. But what
mm,
Krishna is saying here is that, maybe that's not such a mature, point to be at. And actually, this real knowledge is the mature fruit of all mysticism, of all practices like that, of all
mm,
realizations like that.
mm,
The transcendental knowledge is, I guess, what ultimately comes. So,
mm,
um, yeah, I guess this is another instance maybe where it's sort of
mm,
like there is a
mm,
lot of potential there. There's a lot of material power
mm,
in that.
mm,
But if you're really smart, you really listen, um,
mm,
you might want to sidestep that,
mm,
avoid that somehow, don't get caught up in that.
mm,
I guess sort of keep your eye on what the real goal is, keep that
mm,
in always in your mind, what you're really
mm,
going for here.
mm.
Yeah.
It's hard to be in the ocean and not become wet.
Very hard.
So we are in this material existence and not to be influenced by whether material powers or any material desires, or it's very hard because we are living in this world of physical. and we have this physical body, and we identify with the physical body, and we deal with physical. So it's very, very hard to think beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
Like full covering is there. And that's where
Yeah.
she guru comes. Hey, come out, come out, come out. It's not gonna give you what you're looking for, sir. Come out. That's
Mhm.
where she guru comes.
Mhm. On that point too, Prabhuji, I guess, it's one thing, we're talking about, I guess mystic yoga, but even if you just bring it down to the level of just, I guess, material existence, like you're talking about, like the allure of certain types of power, the allure of wealth and fame, um, all these things that, I guess generally speaking, a lot of people really are going after,
Mm,
whether they realize it or not. It's sort of like people are just kind of trying to, it's like, okay, more money, more notoriety, more attention,
mm.
um, more
Yeah.
praise. It's just sort of like that's the goal. That we just sort of like the default, we just all trend in that direction, right?
Yeah.
And so I guess, before you get to that, so say a point where you're already practicing a lot and you're very austere and you're at that point of like practicing mysticism, I guess just living this life, a spiritual
Mm,
teacher
mm,
is, one of the first and sometimes, I guess the only people to really tell you the direct truth,
mm.
this isn't going to get you anywhere.
Yeah.
Or, sort of like this is a path of suffering,
Mm,
um, even if it doesn't seem like it, and
mm,
they can kind of point it out to you. And in a way, I guess, as you talked about earlier, it's like, it's one thing if I say these words,
mm,
but if someone who has actually kind of realized,
mm,
uh,
mm,
realized the word says them, there's a different sort of a transmission, right? There's a different meaning that they can convey.
mm,
Um,
mm,
and so I guess, yeah, there's even just sort of the, are you sure you want riches? Are
mm,
you sure that that's what you are going to spend all your time and energy, achieving? Are you sure you want to be better than everybody else at something? Is that really what all this
mm,
time and energy is going to
mm,
go into?
mm,
Um, yeah, maybe that's one of the first messages that we hear anyway before we get to, any sort of other achievements,
mm,
because there's a lot of different ways one can
mm,
practice spirituality and kind of, guess get branched off, get
mm,
distracted, get
mm,
taken by different types of
mm,
allurements.
mm. I was thinking as you were speaking, based on what you spoke of, like one with transcendental knowledge, when he deals with these people, he will see how the mode of passion is in action, and how everyone is bound by the three modes, and how what they are aspiring for from that, the results will be contrary. He can see that also. Because Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, mode of passion leads to misery. Desires or activities in mode of passion leads to misery. So one with transcendental knowledge will be able to see it. We, I mean, I'm talking about myself, may be able to see it, but we will still be conditioned by that environment and may develop those desires here and there, and may not be able to act on a transcendental knowledge because we don't realize it. We may see it, we may understand it, but because we don't realize it, we won't be able to act on it. We will be able to, when we hear, when we read, yeah, and then after 1 hour, we may still be acting in the same platform. Maybe
Mhm.
little bit better based on how much realization one has. But we will still be acting on the same platform. And that's why the only way out or hope is a practice. And
Mhm.
what helps us is regular, like when we are discussing now, when we read Bhagavad Gita. So that's like a constant reminder. Because we are in this world of physicals and we'll naturally be sticking to it. Like get attached here, get attached here, get attached here. So you're like, oh, oh, oh. So that's a path, because very hard when we are completely consumed by this world to think out of this world. So there is this principle of sadhana, hearing, reading, association, and there is so much repeated. Why repeated? Because if it's not repeated, it's just not gonna work. That is repeated so that we can
Mm.
stay away. Still, we'll stick to it and stay a little away, and that's the journey to kind of pull ourselves off the ocean. It's a hard one.
Mm. Yeah, I guess, there's a like common thing that you hear a lot. People go, "Oh, I know that, or I know that already, or I understand that
Um,
already." Um, and I guess, yeah, in this context, it just doesn't really apply, right? You can't like, because that whatever level of understanding you have, right? It's not that you don't, I guess, intellectually understand it,
uh,
um, but it really is a much, much deeper, if you're talking about on the soul level,
mm,
um, then yeah, it requires like a daily practice, right? It
mm,
requires, your attention.
yeah.
And I guess, it really does require a lot of humility. I guess that's one thing that comes to mind, right? It's like it's very easy to get into that trap of thinking, well, I get that already, or yeah, okay, I understand that. Kind of like I got that. I don't have to worry about that anymore.
Mm,
Um, and yeah, it's like, yeah, I mean, you really want if I guess if you sort of you're always coming up, you're always coming up against what do I really want?
mm,
If you practice a spiritual path, like, well, what am I really going for? And you always have a choice. You can
mm,
go this way or that way, or
mm,
really any way you choose. Um, and it's like if you're really seeking, I guess that's why there's always a lot of talk about eagerness and enthusiasm and
mm,
sincerity, right?
mm,
Like if your intention is really sincere, you're really seeking the truth, you'll sort of follow where the truth takes you. Even
mm,
if it means an austere practice, even if it means, doing things repeatedly each day and only seeing tiny little bits of progress,
mm,
tiny as you go along.
mm,
Um, and, developing the patience to be able to do that.
mm,
Um, it's sort of like all these qualities slowly get cultivated together,
mm,
during a practice, but it,
mm,
it really requires the humility to say I really
mm,
don't know. Even if I kind of understand in my mind, there's a that realization is really lacking. I really have to work on that.
mm. Wonderful, bro.
Yeah, which I guess at least for me, this podcast is like sometimes it's like those little baby steps. So I guess that sort of does lead into the second half of this verse, because Krishna is sort of talking about one who has developed this knowledge then, right? He says, one who has become accomplished in the practice of devotional service enjoys this knowledge within himself in due course of time.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I guess one of the keys being the practice itself, the
Mm,
practice of yoga,
mm,
the practice of devotional service,
mm,
and in due course of time. So stay patient, keep going,
mm,
right? Due course of time doesn't
mm,
necessarily mean next month or
mm,
maybe
mm,
in a year.
mm,
Um, due course of time that, that practitioner enjoys that knowledge within themselves,
mm, mm,
right? So they don't need to look anywhere outside. They don't need to get it from any outside source.
mm,
It's just there,
mm,
right?
mm, mm. So I was thinking like based on the three modes: mode of ignorance, mode of passion, mode of goodness.
Hmm.
If I am situated in mode of passion and I hear something transcendental, oh, this is amazing. But then I still stand here. This is amazing, but I still stand here. But until I uplift myself beyond the modes, I cannot not act on this platform. I must act on this platform. Although this is very attractive and I want to go beyond it, I must act here only.
Hmm.
And just by hearing, I cannot stay here. I can be uplifted here in association by Guru's Vani, and I can experience being here looking down. Oh, Now I see where I should be. Then I go back and I stand here only. Because this is like my kind of my state of consciousness. This is where I lie. And then comes the practice of devotional service. Like Krishna says, one who renders unalloyed devotional service unto me can become free from these three modes. He can go beyond these three modes. Srimad Bhagavatam says when we practice, the like we are mix of ignorance, passion, goodness. So slowly, first thing is the ignorance loosens its grip on us, and passion and goodness more remains. And then slowly, this whole level and all goodness remains. And then slowly become transcendental. But that's like a decades of practice. And that's why Krishna says, one who become accomplished in this knowledge by the medium of devotional service will gradually be able to enjoy that in due course of time. Can't can't stay here. If I wish, I would have long back went there and stayed there. But it's a practice, and Krishna says the only thing which we uplift by, because there's a material nature, there's material modes. And what free us, Krishna says the path of bhakti. And some people they read Bhagavad Gita on a path of jnana, or they get an understanding, they get the knowledge, and then they say that I get it, I understand it now, like as you were saying. But that's not gonna help, because by understanding, it's not gonna free me from this entanglement. I may understand, I can become an observer by the mercy of the words of Bhagavad Gita, but then I'll still be in this. So the only way Krishna says, Maya me tam taranti. One can go beyond this illusory energy of mind, which is very difficult to overcome. Mama Maya Duratyaya, very difficult to overcome. Ma meva ye prapadyante, but one who surrenders onto me, Maya me tam taranti. He can easily cross beyond it. So the process is devotional service.
Hmm. Yeah, it sounds like it's then important to maybe have an understanding of where you are,
Mm.
right? Like where it's like, okay,
Yeah.
where whatever the spectrum is of the three
It,
modes and,
it,
whatever my particular mixture is of them that I'm typically in it. It sounds like it's maybe an accomplishment in itself, or it's at least it shows some level of progress just if you understand where you are, whether maybe I'm
mm.
just totally situated in ignorance. um but if there's somehow I'm kind of able to get, wow, I'm really ignorant about, like, or like, wow, I just, I'm really like tired all the time, like I really realize that I'm actually kind of like I'm lazy, I always skip this, I never do that, like it seems like, maybe
Uh,
that itself is a good thing, because
mm,
I don't know, maybe it's a natural tendency, we tend to, we expect a lot of ourselves a lot of the time, right?
mm,
um and I guess maybe as a consequence of that, we tend to expect a lot of other people too. We sort of we hold ourselves, I think anyway, this is, I don't want to speculate too much. I think that there's truth in this. We, a lot of people, we tend to hold ourselves to a high standard that's very difficult to reach. So
mm,
then we tend to be very self-critical. And I
mm,
think that sort of has an effect as well, where the culture at large kind of does that. And so then we kind of have maybe higher expectations of others as well.
mm,
Um, and, it creates a lot of issues, a lot of tensions. And um,
mm,
so it's like if we just sort of have an understanding, sometimes it's like, it's that old feeling of like, I think I'm practicing spirituality and now it feels like I'm getting worse. It feels like
mm,
I'm just,
mm,
yeah, I feel like I'm decreasing knowledge rather than increasing. I feel like I'm
mm,
regressing rather than progressing. But,
mm,
sometimes that feeling is really just a better understanding of just where you actually are, right? Like where
mm,
you are situated. And
mm,
I guess, yeah, I know it's at least, it's kind of freeing to know. It's good just to know where you are. There isn't any sort of
mm,
additional expectation.
mm,
It's sort of,
mm,
if you know kind of where you stand, what your tendencies are, or maybe
mm,
in Bhagavad Gita terms, like you have a just a better sense of which modes are working here for me, kind of
mm,
what's my blend, how much ignorance and how much passion and how
mm,
much goodness is there really,
mm, mm,
um that in itself is a good thing, right? It's a very good thing to
mm,
understand, because then maybe you have a better idea of how to
mm,
actually move forward, right? And you don't
mm,
have to have such a maybe an unrealistic expectation of
Mm.
yourself and of others in certain instances.
Mm. So, as we were talking, I was thinking how in the beginning our devotional service is based on intellect, and it is required. It's that's how it works.
Mm,
Like we read, we understand. See, bro, if suppose I'm in mode of passion, I'll be very excited to look for some fame, very excited for some gains, very excited in particular kind of environment and association. If I'm mode of passion, I will naturally be inclined towards those things. That's not me. That's not the soul. That's just the force upon me. And that force is pushing me in that direction. And because I'm pushed hard in that direction, I feel like very comfortable there. Because actually, the mode of passion is getting satisfied. Um, and this activity of devotional service is at the level of transcendence. It really can be enjoyed at the level of transcendence. But that's something which will take me off from the passion and take to transcendence. But I won't have a natural inclination in that direction because it's an activity of transcendence. Even if we think about a person mode of passion, for him to act like goodness is hard. Mode of goodness like gratitude, humility. Mode of passion is like pride. It's hard to act mode of goodness when we are in mode of passion. But for somebody else, humility, gratitude, forgiveness, tolerance is natural. For somebody else, tolerance is like, like it just doesn't exist. It's just a different mode. So to mimic another mode is hard. So we can practice devotional service, but it is also said that this devotional service is like a medicine for us.
mm,
And this is like, and the disease is this forces of the three modes. It's like there is a virus, and this virus is like just ripping us off. And everything like my devotee is sick, and he's like, "No, I'm down, cannot come for a few days to the temple." So there's some viral infection, something, and just ripping him off. And so this modes is just like pushing us in physical direction,
mm,
and this is the disease. And then there is this medicine which is sometimes bitter, sometimes sweet in devotee association. At least it's sweet sometimes, but sometimes bitter. But then intelligence means I understand my disease, I understand the medicine, I understand what is a healthy condition. So I want to get to the healthy condition, and driven and determined in that direction, and regularly taking my medicine. Like Laswala Prabhupada compared these centers as hospitals. And he says everybody who come to these centers, does any healthy person goes to hospital? No. All sick people go to hospital. Why? Because they want to become cured. So those who want to attain a healthy state of the spiritual consciousness of a soul comes to this hospital. But then if in the hospital he says, I won't take medicine, then what can the hospital do? In hospital they can probably make him like unconscious and give him IV or force him, but cannot be done here. Here, the patient has to take the medicine based on his intelligence and free will. That's it's just a recommendation. That's all it's given. No force. Bhakti cannot be forced. Just a recommendation. But that's gonna take me off to my natural position.
mm,
It's gonna kill the virus.
mm. Wow, yeah. So, I guess hence the saying that, spiritual teaching is oftentimes bitter at first, as you're
Hmm.
saying, and then later on tastes very sweet, right? Opposed to material pleasure, which is kind of the opposite,
Like
right?
the happiness in three modes, very wonderful here. It's
Mm,
bitter in the beginning, nectar at the end.
mm,
Like this nectar is tasted by these divine personalities like Srila Prabhupada, Radhanath Swami, and they are like fully tasting the nectar, for which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says we are always anxious for it. But then the natural tendency is if I don't taste it today, I don't want it. I'll take it even if you give me that taste today, then I'll continue. It just doesn't work like that. Unfortunately, I wish, but it is said, Rupa Goswami gives an example. The sugarcane juice tastes bitter when one is diseased by a jaundice. You must have heard that example before.
Hmm.
And it tastes bitter, but the same sugarcane juice acts as a medicine. And eventually, when the jaundice is gone, then the sugarcane juice naturally, the natural sweetness is experienced by the one who is drinking. Likewise, the holy name tastes bitter in the beginning, and even not all the time. Sometimes, sometimes special mercy comes like, oh, this is amazing, but not all the time. All the time, it's taken as a medicine. No, I must do it. Like that's why there is like based on intellect, devotional service is practiced. I know this is the right thing for me, and it's not theoretical. I can feel this is the right thing for me. It resonates within my heart.
Mm.
And I have few moments of experience where I can observe from a transcendental state and I can feel it. And I have experienced it in maybe some pure devotee association, the nectar that it has. So I have developed sufficient faith now, and it's not a blind faith. It's like it's like experienced faith. It's like there are many realizations to it. But now, but I have to drink it every day. So that's a
Mm.
little bit challenging. But one who can, that's why it's called Vaidhi. Vaidhi matlab based on rules and regulations. This to be done, this not to be done. It's based on intellect. And Rupa Goswami says one who does it, very soon he will be cured. And that person will be able to taste the nectar. It's like racing. Some people are like athletes. So some of them really has to work hard
Mm.
to be able to win the race. Some are like, it's tough. 4 hours, I'm tired, I'm sweating, and this is so hard. And eating such kind of food, I just want to stay in my home and eat what I like and do what I like. This is very hard life. But they never win the race. They remain there only. And some is like conquering the world. So in that way, that's why it said the determination is required.
Mm.
It's
Yeah,
hard.
very nice. Thank you, Froji. Yeah. I mean, that's it's like a lesson I guess we all kind of know on some level, right? That I mean like that on one hand just, working hard is the way that you accomplish anything, the way that you do anything, right?
Mm,
Um and so yeah, maybe I guess, when it comes to spiritual life, one thing before you sort of, I guess, begin taking the medicine or and this before you even get into the hospital, before you decide to go to the hospital, right? Or which is the temple, then
mm,
it's like some amount of illusion maybe has to be dispelled, or maybe you just have like, you know, because most people don't see it that way, let's say, right?
mm,
Like most people are not walking around like, oh, I need to make big changes. I'm not in a healthy spiritual state. I'm there's so much more than this. There's so many, there's so many, there's other I need to find other people who, have realized,
mm,
what a true healthy state is so I can,
mm,
learn from them. It's not, I guess, the sort of the common thing that
mm,
average person is walking around thinking or, concerned about. So
mm,
there's maybe has to be some sort of initial sense, whether it's a particular experience that someone has that they really can't explain, um, or whether, they happen to come across a particular book or something like that. They meet somebody on the street, who knows, it could be anything, but like something does have to stir that, right? To where it's like, at least you start questioning, you go, wow, am I missing something here? You know, do I need to receive some sort of, treatment or training?
mm,
Do I need this, right? And I guess, yeah, it's difficult to get to that point too, even to
mm,
there, right? It's difficult to have some sort of understanding of like, an acceptance of, okay, I'm around here or wherever, I'm affected by these different forces and I can't seem to get out of it, even though I kind of want to.
And this realization is avoided by the distress many times.
Mm,
Krishna says four kind of people who approaches me. One is distress, one is inquisitive, one is in knowledge, and one is looking for some material desire, some wealth or something, some gains. Mostly distress. Nature of mode of passion is misery. So whatever everyone is doing, eventually that will lead to misery. Whatever they are looking for, same thing they are going to lead to misery. It's just a matter of do they turn to Krishna in that direction or continue for another, what do we say, um, hoping against hope situation. Most people
mm,
are turning towards hoping against hope. There's so much misery coming from so many endeavors that they are putting into, and they are thinking, this time I'm gonna win the race. I'm gonna get it what I'm looking for. And they again embark the journey and it's dead end. And it's like smash on the face. Oh no, again. And how long? Continue. And some point of time they feel like the heart is empty, they feel broken, they feel distressed. And when they come, it's like oasis in the desert.
mm,
These are thirsty souls who are looking for Krishna experience. And when they come, they feel like somehow
mm,
many don't come back again. They are. I mean, it's just how it is. Krishna also says not everyone is ready. Krishna
mm,
says it takes very very few will approach me. So that is also there. The not everybody, even though they will experience distress. That's why Krishna says anybody who approaches me for any reason is a great soul. They're all undoubtedly magnanimous souls. Anybody who approaches Krishna for any reason. But actually, the material nature is designed, the laws of karma are designed so that we understand this is not our natural position. We must turn towards something higher that we are looking for. And the knowledge is available. The devotees are also available. It's just can they connect? Most miss the boat. But Krishna says most will, unfortunately.
mm,
That's why
mm,
it is said that everyone, there is a verse, I will explain it. Brahmanda Brahmate Kono Bhagyavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Beach. Which basically means every living entity is wandering in this material existence. In 8.4 million species of life. Sometime as a bird, sometime as a fish, sometime as an elephant, sometime as a human, sometime in lower planet, sometime in higher planet. And one fortunate soul, Kono Bhagyavanji, one fortunate soul, he get the seed of devotional service. He get a chance to meet and experience Guru and Krishna. So that's where his journey ends. Till that time, mostly everybody is this infinite cycle of going through 8.4 million species, hoping for the same thing, the inner fulfillment. And no matter what they do, the results are opposite. It's such a fortune, bro.
mm. Yeah, I mean, I guess, for every, I guess in the sort of thinking, I guess that maybe is difficult to hear sometimes, right? Like,
Mm,
it's difficult to hear, oh, well, it's like things just kind of end in misery or um, I guess, another example would be like the first noble truth of Buddhism is just like it's suffering, it's sort of like the nature of life is suffering, right? And I guess because we live in this world of duality,
mm,
um, which we're trying to transcend, right? But because we are still here, we're just where we are and we're in this world of duality. For every, I guess negative side of the coin, there's the positive side of the coin as well. Um,
mm,
hard to even sort of start thinking sometimes about the transcendental idea that, okay, it goes beyond positive and negative. It's just like, the eternal. It's like, okay, well, maybe, at least for myself, sometimes it's good to say, okay, well, if there's the negative side of the coin, there's a positive side of the coin that I can go towards, right? Um, and I guess in doing, just the little spiritual practice that I've done, hearing what you're saying, it's like, yeah, you get that little taste every now and then, um, you're not just sort of left, afloat in the ocean trying to cross it on your own, right? I mean, the analogy that's often used with spiritual practice, with Krishna consciousness, especially you hear is the boat. It's the boat that helps you cross the ocean or, the raft, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, it's like if you, I don't know, maybe you have a certain level of humility, a certain level of intelligence, of understanding sort of where you are. I'm not really where I want to be. There's all these ways that need to grow, these ways I need to improve. Then, you can kind of get started. It's like you get on the boat, you get on the raft, and you find yourself in a position where for the first time, you're not on your own, right?
Mm,
You're
mm,
not just trying to
mm,
get
yeah.
through this ocean somehow,
Mm,
all on your own, waving your arms around. There are finally others, there's finally some sort of vehicle that is helping to take you to whatever this destination is, right? Um, and so that's, that can be a big relief,
mm,
like you say, I mean, a lot of people, they come to spiritual life or they visit a spiritual center or something, and maybe it's just not for them at that time. And so they only come once or twice, or, um, but, in any case, I guess you can have as broad of a perspective as you want, I suppose, somebody who tries something once, some seed is planted there, right? Um, somebody who, you know, searches and maybe they go, okay, that's not it. Okay, I'll look a little, okay, I'll try over here. And it's not really it. They're on this process, right? They've started to try to find help, they've gotten on board of some boat, you know, and they're not
mm,
just trying to cross the material ocean all by themselves,
mm, mm,
Um, so yeah, I mean, there's a lot of relief in that. Like, I mean, I think in the devotee community, everybody relies on each other, you know,
mm,
very, very important to build those relationships,
mm,
and it's sort of
mm,
said ultimately like the devotee relationships become the most important ones, right?
mm,
Of
mm,
like,
mm,
to a very high level, it's like you find the divine in the devotees,
mm,
more so than even in, I guess, sort of
mm,
you don't look for it anywhere else other than with those people, right? With those
mm,
relationships.
mm,
And yeah, that's a really positive thing, right?
mm,
Um, if you start developing friendships with people, and you go, these are kind of they're better friendships than what I was maybe
mm,
used to.
mm,
Or you read a book, it's like, wow, this I like kind of like this better than some of those other books I was reading, I mean, sometimes that does happen too, right?
mm,
There's a lot of ways in like that. There's a lot of different aspects. Um, but yeah, there's a really big positive side to it as well, right? Sort of like,
mm,
okay, if I can try to come to terms with some of these realities that are very tough to look at, that feel very
mm,
bad. It's like I don't want to think about how, sort of the struggle for existence, the
mm, mm,
um just sort of how difficult it is to really find some happiness, and I got it and now it's gone again, like it's it's a tough thing to look at, but
mm,
there is a positive that's just as positive, right,
mm,
as that negative side seems.
mm,
And if I'm hearing the the message that I get a lot, from different teachers, it's that, you know, the transcendental truth, which Krishna is speaking of here, this sublime, nothing so sublime, nothing so pure as transcendental knowledge,
mm,
it goes way beyond just sort of that positive side of the coin, right? It transcends that
mm,
duality and,
mm,
much, much higher. But
mm,
obviously it's just little baby steps,
mm,
to get there.
mm. Amazing, Prabhu. I don't know what else to speak.
Mm. Yeah, me neither.
Good, good time to end.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I feel like I spoke a lot for not having transcendental knowledge. I talked about it a lot.
Amazingly you spoke.
But yeah. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. So good to be doing this with you again.
Yes,
Yeah.
same here. Pleasure is mine.
Right. See you next
So,
time, everyone.
thank you for joining Shyamcast. Bye for now.